What happened to the Metaverse?
Metaverse who? New number, who's this? I'm of the belief that marketing itself hasn't changed that much in the last 100 years. The fundamentals, what has changed is the media.
It's just like wild how many different types of creative they have going out. It's almost inconsistent, so much of it.
I think it's really key for all brands to be thinking about how they generate first-party data, what they do with it.
We're creatures of habit, aren't we? So if you've always woken up in the morning and one of the first things you do is look at Facebook, you just still do that.
Yeah.
You can't. Is there a kind of code word behind that, or just?
Yeah, I think it's a euphemism.
Welcome to What's Got the World Talking, the podcast that delves into what's on the minds of the marketing, PR, and social media world. In this episode, we're turning our attention to one of the biggest shifts in paid media, Meta's rapidly changing ecosystem, and what it means for marketers who've traditionally looked to Facebook and Instagram for growth. Which platforms are challenging Meta? Where does paid now sit in the funnel? And how do you prioritise spend as the platforms demand ever more content? I'm joined by Senior Paid Media Director Rob Lewis to explain what's happening at Meta right now, from the rise of ad-free subscriptions and AI-driven ad tools to whatever happened to the Metaverse. Keep listening for practical advice about how to future-proof your paid strategy and Rob's predictions for what we can expect from Meta in the coming months. Hello, Rob, and thank you for joining me today. Do you want to start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Rob. I'm Senior Paid Media Director here at WPR. I'm responsible for all of our paid media output across B2B and B2C.
Brilliant. So let's start with a really broad question. How is Meta doing right now in the face of pretty tough competition from TikTok?
Yeah. I think what we're seeing is kind of a stagnation in engagement, particularly on Facebook. Engagement's been dropping and it's kind of leveled off at pretty low levels, kind of 0.15.
And that's on paid, not organic or across.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of a general average for Facebook. Instagram's doing a little bit better, but generally we're seeing a drop in performance from a kind of engagement perspective.
And just engagement, what about like just general reach? Are the numbers still there? Are people like leaving Meta in their droves to flock to TikTok, or are people just adding TikTok as another?
Yeah, I'd say that's the case. TikTok's growing hugely. TikTok's growth rate, they're at kind of, I think it's 1.9 billion users worldwide. So TikTok's growing. Meta is stagnating, but kind of from a paid perspective, Meta, we're still seeing performance. There's definitely conversion and lead generation performance coming from Meta still.
It still delivers. Well, I was discussing this with a client the other day. We're creatures of habit, aren't we? So if you've always like woken up in the morning and one of the first things you do is look at Facebook, you just still do that.
Yeah,
you can't
absolutely.
train yourself out of
Yeah. Even though the newsfeed experience is getting worse, from kind of a paid perspective, we're still seeing strong performance, I would say.
And how is Meta responding to pretty stiff competition from TikTok?
Lots of things. I think the key thing that anyone could notice is kind of they're trying to imitate that move to video. So vertical video is being given primacy across the Meta ecosystem in the same way as TikTok. But then there's been kind of a wholesale re-engineering of the back end, which is kind of what we're talking about, Andromeda and all of this AI inputs. And then the other big change, I would say, is this focus on creative. They've kind of they're pushing for better inputs from advertisers. So they're going to fuel performance, fuel the algorithm, and give the end user a better experience. It's
moved very much, this is from a user perspective, it's moved much more of a kind of for you page sort of concept, hasn't it? I don't hardly ever see posts from family and friends. Maybe they're not posting. I don't know. Maybe they unfollowed me. I don't know I don't know what it is, but it's much more of there's a random eclectic mix of things.
Yeah, totally. Kind of trying to guess what you are going to respond to, and the newsfeed experience, particularly on Facebook, has really changed to kind of mirror that For You page, Discover page, across all of the apps. Yeah, so I suppose a way of summing it up is Meta is becoming more like TikTok from a user experience perspective. They're imitating the TikTok platform, and then LinkedIn as kind of another challenger platform, Meta are improving their B2B offering from an advertiser perspective. So you can kind of use job title targeting in the same way that you've got on LinkedIn. So they are doing various things, but the key change is their wholesale take, letting the platform be driven by AI, I suppose.
And a question I just need to ask is, what happened to the Metaverse? Because we lost Workplace, which we loved as a kind of internal comms tool here at the agency. Loved it. And then Zuckerberg gave up on that because he was investing all his time and energy into the Metaverse. How are things going with the Metaverse?
Metaverse who? New number, who's this? So the official word is the Metaverse, although they're still creating kind of the 3D glasses, is it Oculus? It's been strategically deprioritized in favour of AI.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is there kind of a code word behind that, or just?
Yeah, I think it's a euphemism for kind of forget about it.
Okay,
I would say so.
Yeah, but I'm still cross about losing Workplace, so I'm not happy
about
that.
Agreed.
So to really get to the crux of this podcast and what it's all about is very recently Meta introduced a subscription model where you can have ad-free content.
Yeah.
How is that going for Meta, and how is it going for you as someone that spends millions of pounds, all of their time running ads on Meta? So
initially when it was kind of started to be talked about, there was kind of that sense going back to when iOS 14.5 was launched in 2021, and that was kind of Armageddon, and that really impacted performance from a paid perspective. So kind of word on the paid street, as it were, was, okay, this is going to be really big, but the launch hasn't had a huge impact on performance, I wouldn't say, but there are some things to be concerned about. But from a user uptake perspective, I think we're at about 1 or 2% of users at the moment across Europe that have decided to go ads-free and subscribe.
So it's definitely the minority still at this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we look at kind of, say, YouTube Premium, they're sitting at around 5% uptake. So I think we could probably benchmark at roughly 5% of users are going to choose the ad-free subscription model.
And what does that look like in terms for users? It's complete, just
absolutely no ads. You'll have no ads, and your user data is not used in any way to target you at all. No discovery, no additional content surfaced because of your personal data. I'm of the view, though, and I suppose I would say this because I'm a paid media professional. Ultimately, the internet's got to be paid for somehow, hasn't it? So if you're a person who's using the internet, why not be? You're going to be targeted with ads one way or the other. It might not be on Meta, but you're going to be targeted elsewhere. So why not be targeted with ads that are showing products that are potentially relevant and that you might be interested in purchasing?
And what are the immediate effects that you're seeing? Are you seeing a reduction in number? I suppose it's 1 to 2%. You're not seeing...
At the moment, no, but it's something for us absolutely to keep our eye on. I think the biggest concern is the loss of kind of higher spending individuals, like those kind of wealthier segments. So if we were advertising for a business that's got particularly high ticket items, then they're the people that are more likely to choose subscription. Therefore, they become untargetable, as it were. So it's a concern from that perspective, I would say. And there's also a concern that ultimately, if more people do choose to subscribe to the ad-free option, audience sizes shrink, costs go up, there's increased volatility. So it's something we're watching out for. But at the moment, there hasn't been a huge
not with the numbers
change.
that you're talking about. So there's been a lot of discussion around the impact of regulatory policies such as GDPR and the Digital Services Act. So to what extent is this shift being driven by policy, or do you think there is a strategic choice from Meta about the direction the business wants to head in the future in terms of monetizing?
Yeah, I think it feels as though it's absolutely a response to the regulatory environment. There's the Digital Markets Act in Europe, GDPR in the UK, obviously, and then I think it's also driven by the consumer. We're just becoming more privacy conscious and privacy first. So it feels like it's a response to all of those things. And then also added to that, I would say it's a way for Meta to kind of protect their revenue stream. They're thinking, okay, if we're going to lose ads, then we can create a new revenue stream by making people pay. But this subscription model, actually, there's an argument, and I think this is something that's been looked at by the regulators in Europe, that the pay or consent to ads is anti-competitive in itself. So the situation may change yet again. So it's a response to a complicated kind of regulatory environment.
Do you think they're just trying to keep you on your toes and make your job
A little bit, yeah.
as hard for you as possible? You can't have a day off, can't you?
Paid's always in flux and always changing. So yeah, this just feels like another
step
on the road.
So you mentioned Meta Andromeda a few moments ago. Just explain what that is, what it does, why we should all know about it.
Yeah, okay. So Andromeda's part of this new AI re-engineering of the way ads are retrieved and sorted on the platform. It's basically a new brain. It's a new algorithm, essentially. And there's a couple of parts to it. So Andromeda's what's kind of got the headlines, as it were. It's what's being talked about. But Andromeda is actually the retrieval system, and there's another two parts. There's GEM, which stands for the generative engine modeling, and then there's Lattice. So Lattice is kind of the framework, the infrastructure.
Not made this straightforward.
No, they haven't. They've given
0 out of 10 on the, on the usability of all
Yeah,
that.
crazy names. Lattice is kind of the, I suppose, framework and infrastructure that recognises and reads ad content, and the taxonomy, essentially. And then Andromeda is the retrieval system that creates a shortlist based on what it thinks the user is going to respond to, and then GEM makes the final decision and surfaces the ad based on the user's previous behaviours, the data points the platform holds on them. I'm sure there's like a cool analogy for the human body in there, but I can't think of it exactly. Central nervous system, speech, nerve, something like that.
Well, it's no wonder they've had to give up on the metaverse. It sounds
Overcomplicated.
Yeah, I've overcomplicated it, really. And what does all that mean for advertisers and brands advertising on the Meta platforms?
So what it's done, I would say, it's shifted our focus away from audience segmentation and really put the focus back on creative. I think, again, there's been a lot of scaremongering. Oh my God, Andromeda's come and ads aren't working in 2026. People are pulling spend, all of these things. Actually, when you kind of delve into it and you're working on the platform, it is probably a boon for advertisers. It means that creative is read more effectively. The machine learning's just got better. So in essence, the brain that we're feeding as paid media specialists has become better at doing its job. So I'm seeing this new technology as a positive, but a lot of paid media or people that are trying to do paid media are like, Andromeda's going to ruin the world. But I don't think it is.
You're saying positive. And how do you keep on top of just so many changes in your specialist field?
I'm of the belief that marketing itself hasn't changed that much in the last 100 years. The kind of the fundamentals. What has changed is the medium, the way we get the messages across. So as long as we've got good products, we've got strong messages, we've got strong creative, these platform changes are. It's not a huge concern as long as if we focus on the fundamentals, get those right, then our products, services are gonna sell, and we're gonna get conversions.
So let's veer off course just a moment. I think something that I'm really fascinated by is the rise of AI in social media creative and advertising creative. What's your view on the role of AI in social media creative?
I mean, if David Attenborough or Oprah Winfrey are trying to sell you crypto, run.
You think that shouldn't be trusted?
Yeah,
No.
don't trust.
Okay, noted.
I think deep fake imagery where they're trying to impersonate a celebrity for an endorsement, that's obviously concerning. And the platforms are trying to put in frameworks to stop that from happening. But AI from kind of an image creation perspective, I think, again, I'm kind of ambivalent. I'm not against it. I think it's coming. But I think the real threat from kind of my work is if we cede control to the AI power, the AI tools in the platform, the AI creative tools within Meta, we kind of move into brand safety concerns. They can kind of split up your brand, make your brand look strange, appear strangely. So what we've tended to do is have our designers create assets or our clients' designers create assets, and then we'll sit with the client and maybe go through, because Meta will then take that asset and give you 30 more options, and we'll go through and go, okay, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, that doesn't work. It's getting better, but it's not, I still wouldn't trust it completely.
It loses authenticity. And they're the ones I've seen.
Yeah.
They're just so obviously like an avatar trying to sell me the product,
Yeah,
and then it
that
switches
I'm
to an audience, and it's just
giving assets that have been created by a designer that are brand approved, giving those to Meta's Advantage Plus image creation and allowing it to create variations. You're looking at around 50% might be okay, but yeah, again, you really got to. There still needs to be that human eye making a final decision. I wouldn't let Meta's AI create assets for any of my clients off the bat.
No, not there yet.
No, and I don't think it ever will be, unless they really tighten up on kind of their understanding that a client's brand it's their main asset, kind of their brand infrastructure, their colours. You can't just hack that up and present it how the algorithm thinks it's going to work.
Yeah, agreed. So how important is first-party data now that Meta's user-level data is further constrained?
So first-party data has always been super important from my perspective. I think the use of it has changed. So first-party data is in email addresses. Customers agreed for that data to be shared with the brand. Previously, we would have used it to create lookalike audiences, remarketing audiences. Now I'm thinking first-party data, the importance of it is, if we zoom out a little bit, is not necessarily just for the use on Meta's platforms, TikTok, or on paid social or across the Google ecosystem. It's more broad than that. It's kind of about owning the customer. Otherwise, as a brand, unless they own that customer data, they're essentially renting it from the platform. So I think it's really key for all brands to be thinking about how they generate first-party data, what they do with it, and kind of the engagement and nurture journeys that they have set up across platforms. So it's bigger than paid, I would say.
And if creative is becoming a core performance lever, how would you advise brands to think differently about creative now? Volume, variation, personalization?
Yeah, it's always been key to have strong creative, but what we're seeing now with this new AI tech, with Andromeda, Lattice and Gem, is the requirement for increased creative velocity. So you need more ads, and then diversity, but true diversity. So not 16 variations of the same image. You need to be really thinking through different personas, different pain points, different proof points on your product, and creating assets that are really, truly varied. So you could have ads for a single product that look really different. That's kind of the route we're going down. So
and why is that?
It's to do with kind of the way this AI works. So in order to drive real scale, you need to have the AI show your ads to different pockets of the audience, and it'll only do that if the creative is truly differentiated. So we're still kind of testing this at the moment, but that's what we're seeing, a kind of way to unlock scale through the AI is to have really different assets that go, okay, this is a completely different pocket of your audience. We'll show them. We can't reach them without that creative. So creative is the lever for growth, but it's also a key to unlock new audiences. So you can kind of scale spend horizontally and then vertically across audiences.
So taking all of the changes that you've just talked us through into account, who do you think is doing a brilliant job of social media advertising at the moment?
So I just want to caveat, I am slightly a Kardashian fan. I'm not a worshipper, but I actually think that Kourtney Kardashian's Lemmy, they've won TikTok with their approach in the US. What she did, or well, her team, I'm not going to say it was Kourtney. The gummies, I mean, they're supplements, I suppose.
Yeah.
Through aggressive gifting to micro influencers, micro creators, plus a really strong paid strategy, she's appeared everywhere all at once. And Lemmy's really kind of smashed TikTok. I think they've done kind of, I think it was $10 million in a day or something through this kind of swarm approach.
Wow.
So I think that's really clever, kind of bringing together. And I think this is something that links back to all of these changes. The focus is back on creative. So I would say to some degree, what we're seeing is the barriers or the differentiation between organic and paid, it's falling down. So for a few years, I feel like paid was really in a silo separate to organic. Yes, organic fed audiences in certain ways, but I wasn't thinking about the two, how they can work in conjunction. I think all of these changes are bringing the focus back to creative and bringing organic creativity and content creation back to the fore. And so I'm really thinking about how organic can feed paid. And I think Kourtney and Lemmy are a really good example of that.
Yeah, I think organic should feed paid. I'm not just a boosting thing. This post has done well, let's boost it. But in terms of the audience engages with this type of content, how can it be repurposed for paid?
And kind of bringing in influencers, creators. So they're all one, really. That's what I'm starting to think of it more as. How can paid feed your influencers? Which influencers are we going to put spend behind? How are influencers feeding your organic? It's kind of breaking down those divisions that I feel like were definitely there. I think that's kind of an unexpected consequence of all these changes and something I wasn't predicting. I was thinking we'll continue creating paid specific creative, but what's working really well is when organic content has worked well, then we'll think, how can we iterate this for paid, add a harder CTA, that kind of thing. So that's really interesting. I think Kourtney and Lemmy, she's done that's a really good example of that.
Well, to drop down a notch, I've been sponsored an awful lot of ads from Heights. Have you heard of them? They do the like supplements, supplements, vitamins, minerals, all that kind of thing. Yeah, Rylan. He's one of the faces there. And Ben Shepherd as well.
Right, okay.
So it's not Kardashians, Jenners, anything like that. But I think I can really see with the ads that they're serving me, it's just like wild how many different types of creative they have going out. It's almost inconsistent, so much of it. But I can see then it just constantly catches my attention because it just changes. It's like, oh, not them again. It looks so different.
Yeah, that inconsistency is kind of a good thing.
It's strange, isn't it? You'd never have thought that before, but now I get it.
It catches the eye, the platforms, the AI is seeing it as different, true diversity. And I think kind of because the platforms, it's a hungry beast, how can brands create enough volume to feed the beast? And it is exactly through this. It's through having creator partnerships, your regular paid creation, ad creation, and bringing them all together to really kind of drive up volume.
So what are the practical steps or practical advice you'd be giving marketers at the moment about how to go about approaching paid social campaigns, how to make the most of them, what pitfalls to avoid? That's an enormously long question. So,
I think, revisiting your creative approach, creative strategy, sit down and re-strategize kind of what your ads should look like and really start to think about true creative diversity. What are all map all of the pain points that your product or service serves, map every potential ideal customer profile, and create ads for each of these groups. So you really want to, instead of just talking about 5-6 ads that say how great your product are, really thinking about angles, thinking about offers, and you can see all of these things that I've mentioned. You can multiply that and have 30, 40 pieces of creative.
Has that had an enormous impact on what your creative budget needs to be?
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? I would say so. The challenge is it's driving up creative costs.
Yeah.
People don't have the resource. It means that the speed that you can optimize. So you see an ad's performing well, we want to iterate on that, but then you need 30 different variations. And that's where Meta's AI is in platform options. But that goes back to that brand safety piece around, okay, we might want a variation on this ad. Let's let Meta's AI do it. But then that is actually slowing us down because I'm having to sit on a call with our client and go, yes to that one, no to that one. Why is she upside down? Why is she on a snow-capped mountain? These kind of strange.
So is there a guideline, like what percentage of these ads you let through these AI?
I mean, our bench line is none unless the client is happy to test existing assets being iterated upon by the AI.
That has had an enormous impact on your creative costs overall. Yeah,
absolutely. And so that's why I think we're seeing that kind of collapse of the division between organic, creator.
Have to lean more on organic. We'll certainly work closer hand in hand with the organic.
How can you kind of maximise, sweat your existing assets and drive up creative production that way? And I think if you're doing gifting, for instance, you've essentially got free creative production, and then how do you build that into your paid strategy? So it's really rethinking how you do create paid content. And
what's your view on some stoppable content, I suppose? So you'll often see an ad that says, "We're sorry." So it looks like they're about to announce they're going bankrupt or something terrible has happened. But it's like, "We're sorry. Yeah. We're doing another 30% off this. So if you bought it a few weeks ago, you could have saved even more if you'd waited." They make you look.
Yeah. I mean, it works. Kind of unstoppable scarcity. It does work, but is it going to drive? Is it sustainable? Is it going to drive brand trust? And is it something that you want to be known for? Zooming out again from paid, because I think we went through a period, and I definitely worked as a paid media specialist during this era, where you could have a rubbish website, a pretty bog standard product, and paid could scale your business. And
you could rely on the brute force of spend.
Exactly, yeah.
You
can't anymore.
That does not cut it
No.
anymore.
So if people won't pay full price for your product, look at your pricing strategy, like your positioning. Are you justifying the price? So I think paid's are really good. It can act as kind of a canary in the coal mine. You can go, okay, people won't convert at full price, so let's go back and think about the product. But obviously, we don't necessarily, because we're working in partnership with brands, we don't necessarily have that control, but we can kind of point to these issues that potentially paid's throwing up.
So what is the principal role of paid social in the funnel, the sales funnel?
I see it as a discovery engine. So it's driving acquisition. It's bringing new customers to your wider ecosystem. So your other paid channels, your website, driving people through to your email. It's probably the first place people discover your brand. So in that sense, discovery engine, top of the funnel. But that's not to say you can, and we do, have great success running full funnel campaigns. So top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, from new customers right the way through to retention. So this is why I love paid social. It can do both.
It used to be seen very much as bottom of funnel, didn't it? It was a conversion.
Yeah. I mean, it will pick up the remarketing capabilities on Meta, particularly, were super strong. But now with increased privacy, I mean, we don't even run that many remarketing campaigns anymore. What Meta's saying, the AI has got to a point where if you give over targeting to the AI, we'll remarket, we'll hit people at the top of the funnel, we'll hit people at the bottom of the funnel. So again, we've moved away from kind of this segmentation of the funnel. I used to spend my whole life thinking, right, top, middle, bottom, where in the customer journey am I hitting this user with what message? That's less important now. It goes back to creative and creative as targeting.
So only a few months into the year, while spring is here, officially now.
Yeah.
Are you willing to take a stab at what you think the Meta ecosystem will look like by the end of 2026?
I think from a paid media perspective and a consumer perspective, the ads that are being surfaced are going to become even more scarily accurate. You're going to basically, the algorithm's getting to a point where it knows what you want before you even know what it wants. I think that's kind of the direction we're going at. I mean, there'll still be errors, but it's going to become more scarily accurate in terms of the ads that are being surfaced to you based on your behaviours. I think we're going to see, hopefully we don't see continued declines in organic engagement, particularly on Facebook. I think there's work underway to make the Facebook newsfeed experience better. I think that needs to happen. That's more of a wish than...
I know for quite a few of our clients on organic, on Facebook, reach is doing really, really well. I think the prediction was Facebook would be dead, but actually it's...
Yeah. So they are surfacing brands, aren't they? They're driving reach, but from a user perspective, I mean, my personal Facebook newsfeed, it's a bit of a junkyard.
Mine's a junkyard as well. Very strange collection of things.
So I think overall, the platforms are going to just get better and better at surfacing ads to the right people at the right time, driving performance for brands.
So when you're talking to CMOs or other senior marketers at the moment, what are the top 3 things you're telling them to do in response to the very significant changes over at Meta in recent times?
Yeah. The first one is revisit your creative approach, rethink how you ideate and drive ad production. You need to go for volume and diversity. So that's 1. Then 2, going back to my point around paid media not being a magic bullet, is go back to the fundamentals, not necessarily product, but what's your conversion rate on your website? You know, we can drive great traffic from great ads, but if they land on a site or a lead form that looks like it's from 2005 and your conversion rate is in the gutter. So I think we need to zoom out from just purely paid media and look at kind of the whole customer journey. So website conversion rate is where I'd point to next. And then the third one is thinking about getting a handle on the numbers. What's your contribution margin? What's the unit economics of the product that you're selling? Therefore, you know, what's your profit margin? What do you need to make on each sale or each lead? And then really understand how much you can spend on paid media. Because I think often what we find is it's just a budget. Oh, the last bit of the budget we'll just spend on paid, and paid's the pot that gets taken from to plug the gaps in every other area. You might take 10 grand out to pay for this new creative, but then you've got no spend to actually serve that creative. So I think if you really spend time as a marketer understanding what you need to make per product or per sale or per lead, you can get a strong CPA target, you could cost per acquisition target, and then really know how much you can invest and can spend on paid, because then maybe paid can become a magic bullet for your business again. If you're spending the right amount, you've got the right creative. So it's kind of going back to fundamentals on that.
And what would you say to a client that comes to you and says, look, I've got this amount to spend. Where am I best to spend it? Is it going to be with Google, with TikTok, with Meta?
Yeah. There's so many dynamics, isn't there? I think the way we're approaching new briefs is kind of as a rule of thumb, I want to be across more than, well, 2 channels, 2 paid channels basically. And then on a case by case basis, we're looking at what is the, where did your customer hang out? You know, so really think that through. I was a Meta first advertiser, but now Meta isn't always the first channel that I'm going to look at. I think you need to be on more than 2 channels, two minimum.
Yeah. And it certainly was the case that TikTok had the best CPM.
Yeah. TikTok is still cheap from a paid traffic perspective. It's functionality from a back end perspective, kind of the ad build perspective. It's a lot more clunky. There's so many, we all love a bit of 2-factor authentication. I recognize the need for it, but TikTok asks for 2FA on 2FA. You have to do kind of a Krypton factor puzzle to get into the platform.
I'm not very good at those. Have to send me pictures.
Exactly.
How many pictures of a bike in? I always get it wrong.
Exactly. How many spheres or how many dodecahedrons or whatever they are. I'm just there I'm not today. I just want to get into the platform. So yeah, TikTok is cheaper traffic. Absolutely. There's less competition from an ads perspective, but that's going up. So I think this year we'll see CPMs leveling off roughly where, kind of in line with what we see on Meta and other channels.
So what does the future hold for your profession?
I think AI is coming, it's here, but I don't think it's going to take away the paid media's specialists' ability to create strategy that really draws that creates a red thread throughout all of your comms. That we're going to be needed for that strategic insight to decide where the spend goes. We can't cede all that to the algorithm. It makes mistakes, and yeah, that kind of human element, human creativity, human insight, I think that's kind of the direction that paid's going.
Are you excited for the future of paid social?
And paid media more generally? Yeah, I think so. The only constant is change, and yeah, let's keep with it.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
No worries.